So we just heard Ezekiel Elliott will not be in today's hearing in New Orleans, but the Fifth Circuit could make an immediate ruling on the NFL's request for a stay of the injunction. Ryan Clark still here with us. Ryan, how do you see this playing out?
Well, listen, the Fifth Circuit Court doesn't just hear any injunction. So the fact that they're even taking it bodes well for the NFL. And now we're getting a situation where we're talking about courts and do you have jurisdiction? This is way past whether or not the NFL has decided that Ezekiel Elliott violated the personal conduct policy. And so for me, I feel like in the courts, we're just delaying the inevitable. Ezekiel Elliott is going to serve this suspension at some times. We saw through the Tom Brady trial that the courts they're very reluctant to make a decision in these labor type situations. You know, the Congress, even with the Labor Relations Act, doesn't really want to play a part in these labor disagreements. So what we're doing is just postponing it. Listen, Kia Roberts said that she felt like Ezekiel Elliott shouldn't be suspended. Roger Goodell made the decision that he's going to be suspended. You go to the appeal hearing, they decide that they're going to stay consistent with what they said in their initial findings. So he's going to serve this suspension. If you're the courts, you grant the stay and you allow Ezekiel Elliott, the NFL, to move on from this and serve his suspension right now. To continue this throughout the courts, to fight it through the courts. I understand this is the only way as a PA, as DeMaurice Smith, that you can actually find ways to defend your players because of the CBA. But in the end, the CBA says that Roger Goodell and the NFL have the right to be the judge, the jury, and executioner, and they've done that. They've executed their right by the collective bargaining agreement. So if I'm the court, I grant the stay, and I make Ezekiel Elliott start serving his suspension now rather than later.
I completely 1,000%.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Hold on. I completely and 1,000% agree with Ryan Clark. You're absolutely right. And this was the point that I've tried to make for weeks, Ryan. This is what it comes down to. This is not deflated footballs. This is domestic violence. Unless you are making the argument that you are innocent, that you have been falsely accused, you have no business fighting this, because all it's doing is prolonging the inevitable and keeping your name relevant in the news for domestic violence. DeMaurice Smith, the Players Association, and the representatives for Ezekiel Elliott are making the argument that Roger Goodell has abused the process, that has, just been, completely authoritarian in an unfavorable fashion, in an unfair fashion. When we hear the courts talking about Roger Goodell, when they've alluded to being in favor of Ezekiel Elliott, it has never been about his innocence. It has always been about the process of abuse exacted by Roger Goodell as commissioner of the National Football League. The commissioner of the National Football League recognizes the fact that in the world of sports, the CBA is the Bible. I'm going to repeat that, the Bible. It is that profound in the eyes of the courts when it comes to collective bargaining. That's how legitimate the collective bargaining agreement is. They don't want to open up that Pandora's box and be flooded with cases where the CBA is compromised because the courts have enough work on their plate. They don't want to deal with that. So if you're Ezekiel Elliott, you have to understand that even in the event that they're successful for the time being and you're allowed to play, you are still going to have to deal with this situation, and it's prolonging having your name in the news for domestic violence. Everybody might win. DeMaurice Smith, the attorneys, the representatives, because they're all getting paid, of course. The league itself might lose for the time being, even though we know they're going to win later on. But in the end, the perpetual loser in all of this is Ezekiel Elliott, because domestic violence being attached to your name will not go away, and you're not fighting about your innocence. You're fighting about the process, which is a joke when it comes to the issue of domestic violence. It's that simple to me.